there's so many people that I see like wait to do something big and then something gets in the way or they don't have the health to do it anymore and like seize the opportunity, seize the moment because you never know what's going to happen.
Runners assemble, because on the show today is a 2:17 marathoner, a world record holder, a Transcon finisher, and quarantine backyard ultra winner, Mr. Mike Wardian.
I want to showcase for people that it is possible. I didn't come from a big endurance background. I didn't know any of these things when I first started.
Mike has accomplished a staggering amount as a runner over the years. He's run 7 marathons in 7 days on 7 continents, for which he set the world record. He ran across America. He holds FKTs all over the globe, from DC to Israel. He even completed a race wearing a Spider-Man costume. And he's done all of this while holding a full-time day job and spending time with his wife and young children.
And so like, I hope when people see me now, they're like, well, if that dude with like the family and the job and, you know, all these other commitments can do it, like maybe I can do it too.
In today's conversation, we discuss how he started running. We talk about setting world records, his experiences running across America, and how he balances all of his hobbies and his athletic accomplishments with his family and his full-time job.
I think the biggest thing is I really want to do it. And I think a lot of people come up with reasons why they can't do something. And I look for more reasons why you can do something.
It's an absolute pleasure to have Mike on the show. He's super fun to talk to. I'm grateful he made the time to come sit down with me. And I hope this episode gives you wisdom and practical tools regarding endurance, motivation, time management, and just being a lifelong learner.
You don't have to go fast. You just have to keep going, and you have to want to keep going. If you keep doing the little things, the big things happen.
This is me and Mike Wardian. Right on. Well, let's just get into it. Super nice to have you here. I'm so excited to talk to you.
Thanks, man.
I don't even know where to begin. Like, your resume is so ridiculous. Like, there's no way we can go through like all of the crazy accomplishments. So we're going to try to just, feel our way through this. But I want to begin with DC. I'm from DC.
I know.
And you live in Arlington. Are you from there? Your parents live there, right?
My parents are from Oakton, so a little bit further out. And you're from across the river.
Yeah, I grew up in Bethesda.
Yeah, so I was just in Bethesda last night.
Oh, wow. I mean, Bethesda now is like a city compared to when I lived there. Like, when I was going to school there, it was before the subway even had made its way out there yet.
Yeah, I feel like that's like the Red Line, maybe.
I don't even know. My parents live in Georgetown now. They moved to the fun part of town after I went away to college.
Yeah, that is a really nice part of town.
Yeah, but it's a great running city.
It's such a good city, yeah, for running. But I guess you weren't running then, right?
No,
You were just swimming.
I was
all
swimming.
The time.
Yeah, I was swimming. Running came later, but I always enjoy when I go back to DC. I stay with my parents in Georgetown, and then I can get right down onto the towpath, or do the loop around the bridges, or hit Rock Creek State Park, all of your kind of background stomping grounds.
Right. Well, and I would suggest the next time you're there, it's a thing called the Potomac Heritage Trail, which I don't know if you've ever been on.
I don't think so. Maybe.
No, well, you would know. So it's pretty awesome. So you can go right across Key Bridge, loop down to like Roosevelt Island, and then you just go along the river, and there's a trail that goes all the way out to like Chain Bridge.
I have done part of that. I've gone out like around Haynes Point.
Yes.
Yeah.
But that's actually a little bit different. Yeah. So like that's if you like kind of stuck on the bike trails, but this is like dirt, and there's like waterfalls and like roots and rocks and like,
oh shit.
It's fantastic.
I definitely haven't done that.
Yeah. It's one of my favorite runs in the world, and it's right there, right across the bridge from Georgetown.
Yeah. Well, you'll have to provide me that route so I can.
Oh my God. Yeah. I'm happy to take you too.
Whatever. One of the things that I think is so interesting and distinctive about who you are and what you do is that you combine so many disciplines. I mean, it's one thing to be an elite athlete at the top of sport It's another thing to, kind of go off and do FKTs and all these sort of stunty sort of things that you do. But then on top of that, also to have like a robust professional career and have kids and a family, like combining all of these things seems so Herculean, like such a monumental task. And you seem to do it with a lot of like grace and ease. So before we even get into like all the accomplishments, like how do how does that jigsaw puzzle work for you?
I think the biggest thing is I really want to do it. Like I feel like I've always wanted to kind of meet my obligations and still like chase these like big audacious dreams and goals. And so I think if you don't want to do it, like it's almost impossible to do it. And I think a lot of people come up with reasons why they can't do something. And I look for more reasons why you can do something. And so like for me, I don't know if it was the same with you, but like every time you like went to the next level, you'd always have people that were like, oh, you can't do it because of this or this. Like, I remember when my wife and I got engaged, like all my running friends were like, oh, your running's going to go downhill. Yeah. Like it's for sure. Like, you're not going to have as much time to train with us anymore. And it only got better from there. And like the same with like when you have kids, it's like, oh, as soon as you have kids, like you're not going to be able to be here. And then I'd rock up with like 2 kids in a bob stroller and we'd be running like 6:30s, 10-mile run around the monuments or whatever. And that's just, how you got to get it done. If you want to do these things, like you have to put your head down. And for me, it was like, getting up early, and then figuring out ways to like, I knew I had to go to work every day. So like, instead of driving, I started bike commuting. And then from there, I started run commuting. And then I just wanted to make it happen.
Finding the solutions, always looking for the solutions.
Yeah.
But when you're plotting some, audacious goal, like running across the United States, et cetera, I mean, obviously that's a family decision. Right?
Oh, yeah.
Like, how does that look? You sit down with your wife and you're like, here's what I want to do.
Yes. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. So I and my wife's Jennifer and she's amazing. But first, I mean, there's so many different aspects to go into that. And, originally it does come down to that, like, hey, I want to chase this thing, when would be a good time to do it? And like, and you probably know this because you've talked to a lot of people, because I've listened to all your conversations to people that have done this. And, usually the best time of year is like March or maybe late February or like end of August, September. And like, for me, like with work, it just doesn't work. Like the end of the cargo fiscal year is September. Like that's when the government does all their business that they're going to do. And they got to spend all their money. So I can't do like August, September, because I just don't have enough time. And then the kids' spring break was in in April. And so she's like, well, you can't miss spring break. So like my time was when I get back from spring break with the kids until I'm done. Right. So like we looked at that, and then I had to cycle back like a year from that. And then I had to hire somebody for our company that I work for
to cover for you.
Me.
I was wondering, like, how, like, I know you're a partner in international shipping brokerage, maritime. Like, I don't even know what that is. It sounds very Jason Bourne.
Yes. Import export.
Yeah. Like, oh, okay. What's actually happening here?
Yeah, totally. No.
In DC,
right.
Proximate to the CIA. Like, my conspiracy mind is.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Yeah, I have a lot of passport stamps. No, it's so we do humanitarian food aid shipments. So if you ever see stuff for like World Vision, Save the Children, Food for the Hungry, those type of programs, and we do shipments from the U.S. and it's kind of export additional grains that are coming from the farmers that are being shipped overseas, and they're used for like feeding programs or monetization.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so it's really cool. And it's a job that I kind of started really at the bottom, like as the secretary, kind of like get your foot in the door, go for like running around, like getting people sandwiches, and then kind of worked my way up. And now I'm one of the owners of the business.
That's cool. And they're cool with you like going off on these tangents every once in a while, as long as somebody can cover your workload in your absence.
Well, and I was actually working from the road too. So like, there were a couple days where I'd come in after running for like 20 miles and it'd be like, oh, I got to knock some, deadline out or something.
Wow.
Which was definitely stressful at times, but it was, that's, if you want to do the thing, you gotta be prepared to do the work.
Sure. So it makes sense now that you raise money on your Transcon run for World Vision, given that that's your sort of, it dovetails into your career. And I know Josh, your manager who's here right now, he's been involved with World Vision forever.
Yeah, he really has. And it's cool because I got involved with them maybe 2017. One of the things I did was I ran 7 marathons, 7 days on 7 continents.
Right.
And if you won that, you got $15,000. And I was like, oh, awesome. I can use this to help, offset the cost or whatever. And they're like, it's for charity. And I was like, oh, okay, even better. I can use that to do some good. And so that's when I first got involved with World Vision. I donated that money to World Vision then, and I saw what a good job they did with it. And I was like, hey, if I'm going to run across the country, I'd like to do it for, a good cause. And we were able to raise, I think, over $120,000 for World Vision clean water projects around the world.
Amazing.
Yeah,
Amazing.
it's so cool.
Yeah. Well, I want to get into the Transcon, but before we do that, let's sort of backtrack a little bit. In looking at your resume, I mean, it's so overwhelming, all the things that you've done. 2008, 2009, 2010, US 50K champion, 2008, US 100K champion, 50-mile champion for the US in 2011. I mean, there's so many wins and all this crazy stuff. Gobi Desert, 400K. Then you did the 10 marathons in 10 days on all 7 continents. Do you still have the record for the 7 marathons on 7 continents? Fastest?
I do. Yeah. I do for now. 7
averaging
marathons.
2:45s or something like that.
I think I did, yeah. Including I have the record in Antarctica for the fastest marathon ever run in Antarctica. It was 2 hours, 54 minutes.
How do you even do that? Is there a road? What does that look like?
Dude, it was so crazy. So I didn't know. So we flew down there to Union Glacier, and it's actually surprisingly Antarctica is at elevation. So you're kind of at 3,000 feet, which for a lot of elite athletes, that's not that high. But for coming from DC, that's kind of high for me. And it was a Chilean camp. ALE was the name of the company. And basically they had a 10K track that they had plowed around the campus. And so it was kind of groomed snow, but hard packed snow and ice.
Yeah.
And it was pretty flat until you got to the last 3K. And then it went down this dip, and then it was straight uphill to the start finish area. So you just did that kind of 4 times.
And do you have to put spikes on your shoes, or do you wear a normal trail shoe? Or
actually, yeah, that was really good. So I had all those questions too, and I wore a normal. I run for Hoka, so I ran in the Hoka Stinson. At that time, it was 2017, and the second time I ran in 2019, I ran in the Evo Mafati, which is a trail shoe. So basically, just a regular trail shoe. And
when you fly in, do you have to then wait until the weather breaks and find your window?
Pretty much they look for a weather window. And so you kind of muster. And the first time it was in Punta Arenas in Chile. And then we flew in. And the second time it was in Cape Town.
And when you look at the record, is the record established based upon how fast you run these 7 marathons? Or is it the total elapsed time to do all 7? The travel in between and all of that, and knocking them out as quickly as possible?
So the record in Antarctica was just on that one leg. And then the total time is the time for each race, I think.
I see.
The way that it's done. Because you wouldn't know when you're going to, you basically still have to finish all in, I think it's 168 hours maybe is 7 days. And you still have to finish it all within 168 hours. But if you get a bad connection or something, I don't think they'd want to take that away.
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah.
Where does all of this begin? Because you didn't start off as a high school track and field athlete or anything like that, right?
No, not at all. I didn't have that kind of background at all. I grew up playing a sport called lacrosse, which is
a sport called lacrosse. Yeah,
well,
for a lot of people, I guess, don't know. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, growing up where we grew up, that's what kids did.
Yeah. I mean, it still wasn't one of the most popular sports. I'd still say football and baseball and even soccer was probably more popular. But now it's like, there's a professional lacrosse league.
Yeah,
and
Paul Rabel.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, dude.
Started that league.
Yes. Yeah. He's a stud.
It's cool what he's created. It'll be interesting to see whether it can truly capture American audience fascination.
Yeah.
But they're on like network TV now, the games and everything. And him and his brother have done a lot.
They really have. Yeah. And what's cool is like when I was growing up, like if you wanted to see lacrosse, you'd have to get maybe ESPN2. It'd be like 1:00 in the morning, and I'd be like going down and putting the VCR tape in to like watch Syracuse play like, Cornell or something.
But you played Division I
did.
Collegiate lacrosse at Michigan State?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was my dream growing up, was to play Division I and to just see how good I could get at the sport. And Michigan State, I'd say it was Division I, but it was kind of like not the top tier. So, I wasn't playing at Hopkins or Syracuse or Duke or UVA. Or Princeton even at that time was really good. And I got recruited to play in Denver, but like Denver wasn't even big then. But it was kind of a similar story to you in that like I got recruited, but I didn't get, like, I wasn't like getting money because there was like one scholarship that they split like a couple different ways. Right. So like it was a big deal to go away and play. And for me, it was kind of a dream come true. But I also knew like, eventually that, I'm not going to make $1 million playing lacrosse.
So your career ends, that chapter closes, and how and when does running enter the picture?
It entered my junior year of college. So I joined a fraternity, Pikes. I don't know, like it was whatever. It was fine. And I had a bunch of fraternity brothers. I went to my buddy Vince Voisin's house and was sitting at Easter dinner, and his mom, Vicky Voisin, had just come back from the Boston Marathon. And she had like the crinkly little blanket and the unicorn medal. And it was the first time that I had ever like met a real person that had done a marathon. And I was just like, man, if Vince's mom can run a marathon, I can run a marathon. And that was the time when I knew, like, that moment changed my life. Like, it was like one of those seminal moments where you're just like, I don't know. There's so many like split second decisions that can change people's lives. And that was the moment for me where I was like, I'm going to do this thing. And little did I know that, I'd end up, having all these experiences from that one interaction.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, tell me more about that, because somebody else could have had that experience of meeting their friend's mom and just been like, that's cool, and moved on with their life. But for some reason, a switch got flicked in you, like something got lit up.
Totally. And I think it was because I had started running, like when I stopped playing lacrosse, and Vince and I were like working out, and I was getting strong, and I was like starting to run like, 5K around campus. And then like every now and then I'd run like, I think I could run, to like the dairy part of campus, which is like 10 miles. And I would just go and run. And then I'd be like, wow, I can't believe I made it that far and didn't need to like stop or like take a bike back or whatever. And so when I was like, oh, I'm going to try to do this thing, but I was like, that's one of those like lifelong goal type things where you keep saying it, but you're not sure when it's actually going to happen. And then it kind of crystallized where I was like, oh, Vince's mom can do it. I can do it. And so like, I hope when people see me now, they're like, well, if that dude with like the family and the job and, all these other commitments can do it, like maybe I can do it too.
Yeah, that does seem like a very authentic driver for you. Like your motivation really is to share your experiences for the purpose of inspiring other people to realize like these things are within their grasp.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, I think like sometimes the things that I do, like people are like, oh man, yeah, I mean, you get this too. It's like, I don't even like driving that far. Like, or that's not me, or I'm not built that way. And I hopefully people can see what we do and say like, well, maybe it's not at that level now, but eventually it could be, or like this is a chance to get motivated to start to do something more than I am now.
Yeah, I feel like it cuts both ways. On the one hand, you go off and do something so insane, people can say, well, he's got all this stuff going on and he did that, so I can at least do this.
Yeah.
But I think at the same time, it also makes it easier for people to completely dismiss you as some kind of insane outlier and just say, well, he's wackadoodle. Like that's, like
yeah, totally.
A normal person can't do that. There's obviously something, very different about this person.
Right. But I think like so many people, like I didn't start out that way, right? Like I started out like, oh, I want to run a marathon. Like, I don't know why I didn't start out like, oh, I should want to run a 10K or a 5K or something, because I probably didn't even know that those existed. But when you do have that kind of impetus to get started, like it quickly can snowball.
Yeah. So you sign up for your first marathon.
Yeah.
Marine Corps, or which one did you do?
It was
first?
Marine Corps.
Yeah.
Well, so I did the MS half marathon first, because I was like, well, actually, I guess stepping back at Michigan State, I did a half marathon in a indoor track, like a 1/8 of a mile track in the middle of winter, because it was on my schedule. Because going back, like I said to Vince's mom, hey, it'd be great if you could, help me. And she was like, okay, sure. And she basically just went and took a book like Training for Your First Marathon and photocopied it. And so it was like, it had, one of those old schedules. It was like Monday, run 5 miles,
right.
Tuesday, run 6 miles. And it was like a 40-week build or something. And so whatever it said, I just did. And so when it got to like the half marathon day, it was dumping snow at Michigan State. And I was like, okay, well, I'm going to do my run. I don't want to do it in negative, 20-degree temperatures.
Sure.
So I just went to this indoor track.
Yeah.
And I got my buddy Jason to run with me. And we literally I think I ran for like 2 hours or something around this 1/8 of a track. And I was like, if I can do that, I can do the marathon.
Right.
And so then signed up for Marine Corps when I got out of school and did it with the goal of I guess what I wanted to do was run the Boston Marathon. So when I sent away to Boston, at the time there was no internet, you sent them a self-addressed stamped envelope. And they sent me back the little pamphlet and said what's your qualifying time? And that's when I was like, oh crap. I don't have that.
You can't just sign up?
Yeah, you can't just sign up. I was like, wait, what? And so that's when I signed up for Marine Corps. Yeah, you do
Marine Corps. So did you qualify for Boston in your first marathon?
I did, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So I knew I had to run 3 hours and 10 minutes. And so I was like, okay, fine. I'm going to run 3 hours and 10 minutes, not knowing if I could or not. But I figured if it goes really bad at Marine Corps, my parents can come and get me on the side of the course. And I still remember so vividly, coming into the last mile at 3 hours. And I was like, I have 10 minutes to go a mile. I was like, no problem. I can do this in my sleep. And then I remember, have you ever run Marine Corps?
No.
Okay. So
I did when I was a kid in high school, I think I did the 10K on the same course that they would have, or the 10 miler or something like that.
Okay, cool. So the finish is kind of uphill, and it used to go you had to go all the way around Iwo Jima Memorial. And
I just remember it finishes around that memorial.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So with 10 minutes to go, I'm like, oh, I got this so easy. And then I just remember it being okay, where's the 26 mile marker? And then at 3:06, I was like, oh, I can see it. And then I was like, oh no, I have to go all the way around. And I just remember cursing that 0.2, being oh, that should only be a minute, and it being 2.5 minutes. And so I did qualify, but it was a lot tighter than I expected. And I went totally in just lacrosse shorts and a cotton t-shirt and no lube, no taping, no, just chafed all to, everything.
But all in. You run Boston, and I garner from that this is oh, this is going to be my path now.
Yeah, it was actually pretty quickly. I went to Boston with the goal of breaking 3 hours, because I quickly determined that if you want to be a real runner, you should be able to break 3 hours. And I don't know why that was an arbitrary goal. As a 22-year-old kid, I thought that meant something. But I went with the goal of breaking 3 hours. And I think I ran 254 or so. So I was, pretty much under where I wanted to be. But the thing about it is just Boston just struck me. Like the energy, the vibe. Like I think you've been there before.
No, I haven't actually.
Wait,
Yeah,
what?
I've never seen it. Yeah.
Oh man, you should.
I've witnessed
do
the
that.
New York City Marathon, but never Boston.
Yeah, I mean, New York's amazing. Boston is like, it's even. I mean, they're on par with each other, so you kind of have that experience. But like, I just remember like the little kids with like orange slices, like standing there so excited to like hand them to you, and like everyone's just jazzed, and like there's so many good athletes. Like everyone there is like qualified to be there, and it's just like this huge celebration. And I was like, I want to do this.
And so how long between that experience and you kind of graduating into this elite level? I mean, your PR is what, you're like a 2:17 marathon?
Yeah, exactly.
But that's what, 95, 96, your first Boston?
Yeah, 97, I think, was my first Boston.
So it's really like a 10-year period then before you start making all these US teams and winning all these races, et cetera.
Yeah. Well, in 2000, so I qualified for 3 Olympic trials, 2004, 2008, and 2012.
So 2004, so that's still 7 years of training and learning and developing.
Yeah, exactly.
And in that time, are you in DC, like getting coffee at the Maritime Shipping Company?
Yes. Yeah, I totally am. Yeah. And I'm running for the local running stores, Pacers Running. And so I quickly got on their team. Like at first, I just walked into the running store after running 254, and I was like, thought I was a big deal, and I was like, hey, I ran 254. Can I be on your, running team? And they were just like, dude, you're not fast enough to be on our team. But they were like, hey, you can come to like track workouts. So I basically started out in like the, kind of third group. And by like 2 months in, I was running with the first group. And then I overheard them talking about a race they were going to go do, this Wawa 10 miler. And I was like, I'm going to go to that race and I'm going to beat them all. And I ended up going to the race and did not beat them all, but I beat all but one of them, this guy, Jeff Van Horn, who owns like Lucky Feet Running, and we're still friends, but like he still remembers that day. And, after that race, they're like, hey, you want to be on our team? And I was like, yeah, dude. And I thought I thought I had made it.
One of the things about your career is that you seem to constantly be racing, right? Like a lot of athletes at your level, they'll pick their key race and they'll kind of clear their calendar and they really focus on, peaking for, 1 or 2 times a season. And from what I can gather, it's almost like you're racing. It feels like every weekend you're doing some crazy thing. And maybe that's just part of the whole experience or kind of part and parcel of your training approach, but it is very different from the typical elite runner.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that's the thing that most people started to learn about me, and something that I have been known for is like I'll race 40 or 50 times a year. And it's been less the last couple of years just because I've been doing like super long stuff. But yeah, like that. If I could, I would race, as much as possible.
So for people that don't know, like you ran all the way across the United States from San Francisco, you ended in Rehoboth Beach. The last mile of that was like a 6:10 or something like that, right?
Yeah.
And then the next day you woke up and ran a 5K.
Yes.
In like an official like neighborhood race or whatever, and average like 6:01s.
Yeah, dude. Yeah. And it's funny because I've won that race like 6 times or something. So they were like, you're coming. And I was like, for sure, I'm going to be there. And I was like, I got there with my brother and I was like, I have no idea how this is going to go. And I was warming up and I was like, I feel actually pretty good. And so I went out and I was like, dude, you can't let me beat you. And my brother was like, I dropped him. And then I started like picking up people.
Did you win
that
that race?
No, I totally did not win. But I did okay. I think I was in the top, 5 or 10.
So the point being that you have this huge kind of diesel engine. You can be the locomotive, right, that goes all the way across the U.S. but you also have a little bit of jackrabbit in you. So from a training perspective, like, is that a genetic thing that you've always been able to go fast and long, or do you train for that specifically, or how do you kind of think about that?
I think I like to use, both of the engines. And I think the run across the country I had to be so disciplined. Like, that was unnaturally slow running for me. I've gotten better at that over the last couple of years, especially with the FKTs. And then I've done some of those, backyard ultras. Like, I know you had Harvey on and talked to him, and like, Harvey is similar in that he likes to race a lot too. Yeah. And he kind of,
and he runs to and from work and
exactly.
Kind of stuff.
And so we have a lot of that in common. So we're both plant-based and all that too. Right. So like, we've shared, tips and tricks. But yeah, like, so as far as, I like to mix it up and I like to keep it interesting. So I feel like if you focus only on one thing, I mean, it might be awesome to get really good at one thing, but I don't think that you continue to evolve as an athlete and as a person. So, I don't mind like not being the best at something.
No, you seem to have a beginner's mind. Like, we're going to get, like, you're trying to become a pickleball professional, right?
Yes.
Like, you do all this other stuff.
Yeah,
which
totally.
Just seems insane to me.
Yeah.
But, between the lines, I see somebody who, you're not afraid to try new things. You're always trying to master a new skill. And that keeps you kind of humble and curious, right? And I'm sure that spills over into your running. Like, it all informs, the larger kind of, fully formed Mike Wardian.
Yeah. And as far as like the ability to do it, I feel like you have to, again, it's going back to like, you have to want to do it, and you have to be willing to not have success. And so if you have that mindset going in, like, if I don't win, okay, fine, but like, maybe I did better than I did the day before, or maybe the time before, or maybe the short run's going to help me for the long runs. And then I feel like the longer ultra stuff helps me, especially when I was like running like those fast marathon times. Like, when I ran my PR of 2:17, like 2 weeks later, I ran Badwater and finished third. So
that
like,
was just 2 weeks later?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So like, and like all the people at Badwater are like, dude, your 2:17 is not going to help you. You're going to be out here. Yeah. And I was like, I know.
Yeah. But by always like having another race a couple weeks later, it kind of depressurizes the whole thing, right?
For sure.
'Cause you're like, all right, that didn't go well, but I'm gonna be here 2 weeks later and we'll try something different.
Right. And like, some people think like that's a lack of focus. And I just think that's the way that I like to train, and it keeps me motivated. So like, if you're not motivated, then no matter how, well you do at a race, like it's going to be hard. And like, I feel like a lot of the people, and you've probably seen this in the sport too, is a lot of the people that, you came up with aren't doing the sport anymore, or not doing it in the way that they want, or, I've already stepped away from the sport. So like, there's so many people that used to be my competitor that aren't even racing anymore. So like, that's one of the things I'm really proud of too, is like, just to have longevity.
Yeah, you've stayed in it. I would consider myself one of those people who's not doing it anymore. I'm doing this instead.
But like, that's your choice, right?
Yeah,
like,
I made that choice.
Yeah.
I made that choice.
And some people, like, they don't want to do it anymore, right? And I don't fault them for that, but I'm still like motivated to see, what I can do. And,
yeah, it stayed fresh for you.
Yeah. And I think like, if I had only like cared about my 5K time or my marathon time, like, it gets hard. Like, it's hard to be on that edge for that long and only going for one thing.
Yeah, because at some point you're not going to be able to make that PR work for you anymore.
Right.
And if you have so much invested in that, you're going to be disappointed, or it kind of drains the joy out of the whole thing.
Right. It's like running with plantar fasciitis. Like, you can still run with plantar fasciitis. It just sucks. It's just not fun.
Right.
Like, you can train right through it. Like, I've done it, and it's just sucks the joy out of every run. I mean, yeah.
I feel like most people want to eat better. They want to improve their diets.
Absolutely.
Have you heard of it?
I've heard of it.
This trips up so many people. We thought, hey, we know a couple things about how to do this.
A few.
So we created this thing called the Plant Power Meal Planner that is this beautiful offering whereby you gain access to literally thousands of plant-based recipes that you can totally customized based upon your preferences, your allergies, your peccadillos. It integrates with grocery delivery. So all the ingredients that you need get shipped right to your door so you can make the stuff that you've pre-selected.
And we all could use a little inspiration and support when preparing meals for our families in our busy lives. So we hope you join us no matter what your eating style is. We have our arms open wide, and we've saved you a space at our family table to join us in eating more healthy, vibrant, plant-based meals.
And if you're looking for the perfect holiday gift for a loved one, right now, for a limited time, we're offering $20 off meal planner gift cards through December 15th. Visit meals.richroll.com to claim the offer. Again, for $20 off meal planner gift cards from now until December 15th, visit meals.richroll.com. So over the years, you've gotten, quite a bit of press for all the different things that you've done, from being the fastest marathoner in a Spider-Man costume and like all kinds of crazy things. But I feel like there was an inflection point in kind of your notoriety and your resume with the quarantine backyard ultra, right? When everyone was locked down, all the races were canceled, and the whole world kind of united around this shared community quest where people all over the world were embarking on this challenge. So talk a little bit about that for people who don't know what that is.
Yeah, I'll definitely talk about that a little bit. And it's funny because I didn't even know it was going on until the week that it was happening. And I only saw it because my friend Maggie Guterol was doing it. And I was like, oh yeah, that thing. She'd been like, oh, you'd be good at this. And I was like, oh, cool. And I'd seen, the backyard races. But for people that don't know, I feel like everyone that's probably listening to your show probably does know.
Maybe not. I don't know.
But the backyard ultra is, it's a thing. It's kind of like Century Club. If you were from your drinking days where you drink like a shot every minute on the minute. But this is every hour on the hour, you have to run 4.167 miles. And it seems kind of like an arbitrary number until you realize that every 24 hours, that equals 100 miles. So basically in 24 hours of doing 4.167 miles, it gets you to 100 miles. And then the way that it works is everyone starts the race, and then the race keeps going. No one can quit until everyone quits and there's 2 people left. And then the race can only go one more loop until the last person quits, or the second to the last person, which is called the assist. And the way that the quarantine backyard ultra worked, which was kind of unique at the time, is everyone logged into their computer because everyone was locked down.
Right. It wasn't happening at a particular place. Everybody just did it wherever they were.
Right. Which was kind of amazing. And most of the time it's outside, but because it was quarantine, there were some countries where you couldn't be outside. So they allowed people to be on treadmills, or there was a woman that was running from her sauna in Sweden, out on this frozen lake. There was people running around closed restaurants. I ran around a 0.4 mile loop around my neighborhood for, it turned out to be 63 hours. So I went 260 some miles.
Yeah.
So almost.
And you won
days.
that. You were the last man standing.
Yes, the last person standing. And it came down to me and a guy on a treadmill in the Czech Republic, I guess.
And I feel that within the ultra community or the running community, people are familiar with that format of race and it's gaining in popularity. But that quarantine backyard really kind of made mainstream news because it was such a beautiful celebration of agency in an era in which we were all sort of deprived of agency.
Totally. Yeah. And I think there was just nothing else going on too.
And it was a social media thing. That's what drove the entire kind of intrigue.
Right. And I think what was so neat about it too is that you did have people running in restaurants and they were still in the race, and I'm running around my block and people are no one's going to work. So my whole neighborhood was out. So I met neighbors. What
was going on.
Yeah. And so the first day, no one really was out, but by the second day, everyone's oh my God, that guy's still running around the block. And then by halfway through the second day, like people had set up like aid stations and like all this like
no one has
crazy
anything to do.
Yeah, no one had anything to do. So like it was awesome, people are like, but everyone's still kind of scared too, because it's at the beginning of COVID. And so like, people are not sure if they should be there or not. And so like, but it did give, people something to follow. And I think it was just beautiful. Like I was following the other people and I was like, I can't believe she's still running from that sauna. Like it's like crazy. And then you're getting the different like weather too. And, it was the first night, it was amazing. But the second day it got super hot in DC. And so like you get hot and humid, like versus like somebody that's in their like basement, like it's hard.
Thing,
yeah. So it's,
and the DC heat and humidity is no small thing.
No. Yeah. You know what that's like.
Yeah.
But like just to have so many people come out and then, mainstream media, like it was on ESPN, New York Times, not Wall Street Journal, Washington Post. And like, it got a lot of coverage.
Yeah. It's cool. And that kind of format is only gaining in popularity. Like we all saw what happened last week, right?
Yeah.
Like the kind of ceiling on what's possible with that 4.167 loop is just, exploding. So these guys they were from Belgium, right?
Oh, dude, it was like so baller. Yeah.
420 miles.
Yeah. They crushed the record. Yeah.
Because it was a big deal the year before when Harvey, I think, was the first to eclipse 300. Is that right? I might have that wrong.
I think you're close. Yeah. And what's interesting too is like the format this year, I think, was they had like national teams. So like the US team versus the Belgium team versus the French team versus the Chinese team. And the thing I love about the format of the last man standing or last person standing, I should say, because a lot of times women win these type of things. Like Courtney's won. I know he had on the podcast, and Maggie's won. And I mean, it's just whoever's the stronger mentally, because like, it's not that hard to run 4.167 miles in an hour. Like most people can walk that almost. What's hard is like, you have to like do all your nutrition. You have to go to the bathroom and you can't take aid once you leave the aid station. And so like all that part is hard,
You left out the biggest one though.
Oh, the sleep?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. That.
But you have an interesting relationship with sleep.
Yes.
You don't seem to need that much sleep.
No, I don't. Which is like a good and bad thing. I mean, Josh and I were talking on the way up, and he's the same way. And it's great, but like I definitely see the benefits of sleep, and like I've tried to do better with that. And during the run across the country, like I went from my normal 4 or 5 hours of sleep to like 6 or 7 hours. Like no, like the first like week and a half, I was still doing my thing, like playing my video games and sending texts and emails at all hours of the day and night. And then I was just like, no, I can't do that anymore. So like, I mean, maybe there is like a certain threshold of like exertion where like the sleep just becomes more paramount.
6 or 7 hours. You describe that almost as if that's indulgent.
Yeah.
Like 4 or 5, you're cool with that. I would just be completely debilitated.
Yeah. Like your Whoop score would not be where you want it to be.
No. But you're fine on 4 to 5.
Yeah. I feel like that's pretty good for me.
Matthew Walker would have some quality words for you. The sleep diplomat. Like he's like, anybody who says that they can get by on 4 or 5 hours is delusional.
Oh, well, yeah, maybe that's the case.
But you seem to be high functioning.
Yeah, so far so good. Although I did read like a bad study today about how it, can mess with your overall like diabetes and heart disease and all these kind of bad things.
But are you just naturally waking up early, or do you set an alarm and just say, I'm only going to sleep 4 or 5 hours?
Oh, no. I'm like waking up naturally.
Yeah. So what do you get up at like 4:30 or something?
Usually most days 4:45, and then I start my first workout at like 5:30, and usually that's like CrossFit, or I work with a personal trainer. And then I run usually after that.
The CrossFit thing is super interesting. I mean, that goes back to the beginner's mind thing. Like, I love on Instagram how you're always, very transparently showing all your gym routines.
Yeah.
Which is unusual for a runner. Like, they like to show the epic, kind of videos of them running in a beautiful location. But you're like, no, it's these little things that I do all these strength exercises that, obviously are contributing to your longevity? Because you're like, what are you, like 48 now?
Dude, yeah, right on. Yeah, totally. Yeah, I'm 48, and yeah, I want to be doing this for a long time. And I feel like that's helped me. And I feel like it's really helped me in the longer stuff, like just being stronger, being able to carry like a heavier pack, being able to keep form as the race goes on, or the FKT or whatever I'm doing. And then also it's just like mentally, like it's hard, like when you're doing like the fourth set of like dead bug plank things. And it's kind of like going into the last like 100 meters of a race, when there's a person right on your shoulder and you're like, is it you or me that's going to make it to the line first? And I feel like that really helps.
With that strength and stability, you can maintain your form under duress and strain longer, and more powerfully.
Yeah. And also like just, I have the ability to just grind, like the ability to just put your head down and work. And I think that that's really, really helpful, especially in a race like the last man standing or last person standing, where it's just, you don't have to go fast. You just have to keep going, and you have to want to keep going.
Mm-hmm. So with CrossFit though, were you doing like the classes with everyone else and they take you through, or did you do that just alone or with a personal trainer?
No, I'm doing it with my friend Tom Meyerhofer. And so he has like this really amazing gym at his house. And so we became friends during quarantine. And so I've just been doing it with him really. So I haven't gone to like, Mayhem or any of the like super badass like CrossFit places yet, which I really want to do.
It's a different culture from the running culture.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. But it's something that I'm excited about. I was fortunate enough to do this thing called the Spartan Games during quarantine, and got to see some of the, beasts of the CrossFit world. Yeah. And yeah, that's just something that I am really impressed with, and I'd like to play around with for sure.
Have you ever had periods where you were injured significantly, or have you been pretty injury free?
No. So I had a couple bouts of injury. My first big injury was in 2012, but for the most part, I've been healthy as an athlete. Our son Grant has epilepsy, and so he had epilepsy in 2011. It was kind of right after I'd set all the PRs in my marathon and longer distances, 100K, 50K. And he started getting seizures. And so we were dealing with that. And like my 4 hours of sleep went to like 30 minutes of sleep, like it would be like my turn to check on him or Jennifer's turn to check on him. And I ended up getting 5 stress fractures of my pelvis and 5 hernias like simultaneously. And that was the first time I was like, "Ooh, maybe I'm not going to be able to be an athlete anymore." But I did kind of the same thing I've always done, is like, okay, I can't run right now, but what can I do? And I just like became like the most insane aqua jogger. Like I would just go to like I don't know if you know the pool, but like Washington Liberty, it used to be called Washington and Lee High School.
I know. Yeah, I know that. I know
yeah.
That
so like. I went there and I would just aqua jog for like 2 or 3 hours, and came out of the pool after that and some physical therapy. And it took about 3 months of like letting the stress fractures heal. And then I got hernia surgery, and then came back and went from, nothing to like running. Like, I wanted to run sub 6 minute miles on a half marathon, and ran like 1:14, and then started running again and started winning races again. And then the second bout was during that Spartan Games. I herniated my L6S1 disc in my back. And I think I actually maybe sent you a note about that, because I met some people that were pretty good at getting me sorted out. And so I work with like MedStar Health, and was able to get my back sorted out. I
remember getting a note. I'll look for that though. Cause we could talk about that.
Yeah, totally, man.
Use some help.
Yeah. So I got, I did a bunch of, I'm sure they're probably having you do like open books and that kind of stuff to like try to get your back sorted, but, got that healed. And that's actually when I decided to run across the country, because I was like, it's one of those kind of things that I've been like, oh, someday I'll do that. And when that happened, I was like, I'm not taking any more chances.
This is the time.
Yeah.
Right. And did those experiences inform like your approach to all the functional fitness and strength training stuff to kind of stabilize and prevent that from happening in the future?
Well, I think that I was doing it already, but that's when I was like, hey, this is, I think had I not been doing that, I would have been in even worse predicament and not able to recover as quickly as I did. So when I got injured at the Spartan Games, that was the strongest and fittest I'd ever been because I was getting ready to run across the country.
Right.
And I was like, then I got hurt and I was like, oh, I might not ever have this chance again. And I was like, there's no way I'm going to risk not taking advantage of all the resources that I have.
Have elite runners approached you with curiosity about your strength training stuff? Because I feel like there's a lot of room for kind of growth, and most runners, especially elite runners, they're just doing a lot of the running, and the kind of trope is like the gym stuff, like whatever, I don't have time for that. Or they're worried about putting on weight. Suddenly they're going to snap their fingers and look like Ryan Hall.
Oh my gosh. Dude, he is like such an inspiration, dude.
Incredible, right?
Dude,
incredible.
So cool. It's and I saw it because he was at that first World Marathon Challenge with me. And I thought, oh man, he's going to be my competition, not knowing, like I knew he hadn't run, but I was like, still, he's like a 2:04 marathoner. Like he could not run and still run like a 2:30, right?
And he could probably still crush, he it looks like he's out there running a little bit these days.
Yeah, no, it's fun, man. And so hopefully someday I'll get to do some fun adventures with him.
Right. But I think between the two of you guys, because you're doing a lot of strength training, but you're maintaining a runner's physique, and you're convinced that this is contributing to your longevity and like your power and like all of these things. I think that there's really an opportunity for the running community to, embrace some of the stuff that you're doing in a bigger way.
Well, and it's awesome. Like I every day have someone that like says like, oh man, I do your exercise. Like at the pickleball tournament I was at last weekend, I had 3 people come up and say like, hey man, like I follow you and I do your exercises. And I was like, that is music to my ears. Like I love hearing that. And I think so many people are so intimidated, like either by the cost or like going to a place or not knowing what to do when they get there. And so like just to have like something that's free that they can just be like, I mean, it's not everything, but it's like a place to get started. Right. And so like, that's great. Like, and it's making them better. Like I can't ask for anything more than that.
All right. So we have a tradition here on the show of interviewing more than a couple Transcon runners. We've had Ricky Gates on, who did it self-supported. That's a whole other.
Oh my God. I talked to Ricky.
Insanity, right. Robbie Ballinger, Hella Sidibe. I think Robbie did it in 75 days. Hella did it in 84.
Yep.
I'm correct. I don't know how long it took Ricky, but longer because he was doing his own thing, right?
Yeah. And he did some paddling in there.
Yeah.
And he had like a budget.
And he was making a documentary at the same time.
Totally.
Yeah.
And he had to push the hard part for him is he was going across the desert by himself, like pushing like a cart. So like, yeah.
He had some dark. Did you watch the documentary?
Oh man, I watched it. I read the book.
Dark moments of the soul.
Oh yeah.
At that, when he had to like crawl into a cave for a while and lick his wounds.
Yeah.
I think he really met his maker on that one.
Yeah.
But in your case, you set this goal of doing it in 75 days, which is how long it took Robbie. You ended up doing it in 62 days, right? So
you're
61. Running in excess. To do that, you had to run in excess of 50 miles a day.
Yeah, and I actually did a longer route than a lot of people too, because I went all the way to Rehoboth, and there was a bridge I couldn't get across, so I had to go around it. And
they won't let you run across the Chesapeake Bay Bridge. Right?
The Bay Bridge. Yeah, yeah. And I called the guys in charge of it, and he was like, "No."
Yeah. Most people end in like DC or New York, or they don't go all the way to the ocean. Yeah,
exactly. Or pretty much. And so, I mean, that works, but like I wanted it to be all the way ocean to ocean. And so I actually messed up when I planned it. I started at San Francisco City Hall, thinking I could just run across the Golden Gate and put my feet in there, but that's not the ocean. So I had to run like 10K the wrong way the first day. to get over to Ocean Beach.
Oh, yeah. It's not that much further, but a little bit.
Yeah.
Enough. Yeah, I got you. And Route 50, is that a typical route or is that unique to go that route?
It's pretty unique. I think a lot of people go a little bit different. Like some people go like Route 66. Other people kind of go a little bit higher so that they can get to New York, because like the fastest route for, if you're going to go for the record or something, you want to probably go like San Francisco City Hall to New York City Hall. And you kind of go like through, I think it's Yosemite. You go a little bit through there and kind of across that way. I wanted to run Route 50 because I called the project Running Home, and I actually live on Route 50 in Arlington, like Arlington Boulevard. So I was like, wow, I didn't even know that you could run Route 50. And actually Route 50 ends in Ocean City, Maryland. So a little bit further south. So a couple days after I finished the run in Rehoboth, I went and ran down.
Just to complete it.
Yeah, to complete it.
Because you're just so detail-oriented and compulsive.
Yeah, totally.
In looking at like the other people who have done this, some of the common themes that come up are like a greater, kind of appreciation for the beauty of our country, but also like the people, because you're meeting so many different people along the way. And there is this sense that we're at a kind of unique moment where we feel divided and we can't communicate with each other, et cetera. But, if you talk to Ricky or Robbie or Hella, they'll say, yes, we had some negative encounters with trucks and cars and a few people along the way. But by and large, and for the most part, like it's kind of a beautiful experience of really connecting with people, boots on the ground, in all these different areas as you're passing, so slowly through these various, areas.
Totally. Yeah. And I feel like you also had Mike Posner on, right?
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Because I started following him.
We should lump him on. I mean, he walked, but like I totally didn't even think about that. You're absolutely correct.
Dude, I was petrified of getting bit by a rattlesnake in Colorado because of what happened to him. So yeah, you're absolutely right. And it's funny because people will be like, oh, you ran 52 miles a day. But really, I ran like 5 miles at a time, 4 or 5 miles at a time. Like the first week, I was like too aggressive and I was running like 10 miles before seeing my support crew. But like then I quickly was like, oh, I need more help. And you do get a really good feel for our country. And I can't believe how Team America I am right now. Like I love our country. Like I was so shocked at how much beauty I found. Like I've been a lot of places all around the world, all around the country, but like that little section of the country, Route 50, and kind of like they call it America's loneliest highway in Nevada. Like, and you're going through like places like right near like Area 51, like from Ely to I think it's Baker maybe is like the darkest place in the lower continental United States. So like it's just unbelievably gorgeous, like just nothingness. And I read so many books along the route, but like I was reading books like Stephen King has a book where like people are getting like snatched from like Route 50, like right where I was running. And, so it's like you get like all these kind of different experiences. But yeah, one of the best things was like just rolling up to like a town. Like I was telling Josh this actually, because he was watching like Top Gun Maverick last night. And I was like, oh, I saw this in Syracuse, Kansas at this theater from like 1934. And it was like all locals and my wife and kids had flown in. It was the only time I saw them during the trip. And like we went and saw Top Gun like the weekend it came out after I'd run, 50 miles that day.
Right.
And then we had dinner at a local like restaurant, like the Black Bison or something. But like the town was literally like one of those towns from like, it looked like a movie set, it was like one strip and it was like old school movie Western theater.
Town.
Yeah. Like State Farm office, like restaurant, and then, lake that way, sign. And it was like so many experiences like that. Or like, we went to this place, I think it's in Indiana, instead of, Dairy Queen, it was called Dairy King. It was a complete knockoff of like Dairy Queen. And I don't know if Dairy Queen knocked off Dairy King but it was like, shockingly, they had like vegan ice cream. They had like vegan, like 10 vegan options on the menu, like hamburgers, hot dogs, like, and literally I was starving, but it was actually quite good. Like, and I was shocked at how many options I found for like plant-based foods along the route. Like I was expecting, to just not have a lot of choices. And
Right.
I was surprised at how many choices there were.
Yeah, the diet thing, I mean, that's evolved for you, right? You were sort of a longtime vegetarian who has been increasingly more flirtatious with the 100% plant-based
Yes. Yeah.
upgrade. I'll call it an upgrade.
Upgrade. Well, and I guess I'm still not 100% vegan because I still eat honey. And so like...
That's why I said flirtatious.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I haven't been able to give up honey. And I don't know if I ever will, but I definitely love that aspect of my life, and that I've been lucky enough to find, that I think when you and I were growing up, like the common mentality, especially like playing a sport like lacrosse or football or something, is like, you need meat to be strong, to be able to, compete or whatever. And I just started questioning that. And then, slowly like took out one thing and see how I felt. And then took out another, like I stopped eating red meat in high school, stopped eating chicken in college. And then, I was like, oh, I still feel good. I still feel great. And then I started being like, oh, I actually feel a little bit better. And then my recovery's been the thing that most people are impressed with. And I definitely feel like that has something to do with it.
Yeah. Do you think that as you continue to make those tweaks in your diet, that's improving your recovery, or is that like the variable that you're looking at?
I think it's something. I think it's just feeling good. Like I feel like when I eat the way that I do, like I feel better, and I also feel like ready for the next workout or the next adventure or whatever it might be.
Yeah, your recovery seems like it's off the chain. Like you're able to just get up and go.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, and what's cool is like, I think there's and I don't know if it's a misconception or it's just a common mentality about like, as you age, like you're not going to be able to recover as well. And I just don't buy into that. Like I feel like I've still been able to recover just as well as I had before. I think what happens is I just have more obligations. Like the older you get, you just have more stuff going on, and it just gets harder to maybe focus. But I don't feel like the recovery has been any less than it was.
When you're preparing to run across the United States, what does that training program look like? Like, how do you approach a goal that massive?
It was actually weird. So, and maybe this is, first off, I talked to a lot of people. Like I talked to Robbie, I didn't talk to Hella because I didn't know him at that point. Now I do. I would have. I talked to Ricky Gates. I talked to as many people as I could. A guy named Phil McCarthy. I don't know if you know him or not.
I don't know him.
He's like a New York-based guy. Jason Romero, who's another guy who's run across the country. Talked to, just anyone I could that had done it. And I joined like a Facebook group, like US Transcon Crossers.
I think Robbie talked about that as well.
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of
everybody wants to help, right?
Yeah.
They have this collective wisdom about common mistakes, and
like don't run on I-70 in Colorado, or you're going to get booted off. Like I think Robbie actually had to jump like a thing when the cops came or whatever, and I don't know. Yeah. So I tried to talk to as many people as I could, and what I realized is it's almost like, I think people think when you're getting ready to run 100 miles, like you're going to be running 100 miles in training, and that's not really the way that it works for most people. And so I just realized like, I'm not going to ever be able to do, like my friend Pete Kostelnik I talked to also, who has the record. And he was like waking up and doing like a marathon every day. Right. And I was just like, I just don't, that's not what I want to do. And so I started doing a lot of cross training, did a lot of CrossFit, doing a lot of like strength training. I wanted to put on like 3 or 4 pounds of muscle. Like usually I'm like 140 to 142 pounds. And I wanted to get up to like 146, 147, just so I'd have something to give away as the run went along. So I wanted to put on weight. I wanted to do one kind of simulation race. So I did a race in Sri Lanka called the Ultra X Sri Lanka, which was like a 5-day stage race where you are running anywhere from like a marathon to like 40 miles in extreme temperatures, because I knew like I'm going to not have the option. Yeah, I'll have, and also like I wanted to get the heat and humidity, because I knew that we had a trip with the fam. Like you were saying, like, how did you make it work? Like we planned a family trip to the Galapagos with the family, because I figured like once a lifetime trip, family will all go to the Galapagos. We'll have a great time. And then like no one will need me for a couple of weeks. And then that's 3 weeks into the Transcon. And then by the time people are like, oh, where's, like I'm starting to miss my dad, like I'll almost be done. And so like kind of got all that lined up. But I didn't do a ton of running. I actually did less running than I normally do, knowing that I kind of had a huge base of years and years of just stacking runs and workouts. And it was ridiculous, but like you and I both talked about earlier, is like, I love to race. I turned down more races in amazing locations and opportunities than I ever have in my life, because I was like, is that going to get me across the country? No, then I'm not going to do it. So it was like, I think that was for me, one of the hardest things was like running less than I want to, because I don't want to injure myself or put myself in a bad spot training wise. And then putting on weight, knowing that you're going to hopefully give it back to the running gods, which is what exactly happened. Like there's no way that you can eat as many, like when you say like someone like Michael Phelps eats like 13,000 calories a day or something, like I don't know how many calories you've tried to eat a day, but like
no, that's a job. Like that sounds challenging and not fun.
It's just not fun. Yeah. Like by the end of the Transcon, I didn't want to eat anymore. Like if I could have taken that fuel from the Matrix, where it's like everything you need and like a gruel, and you could just drink it and it would be done. Like I would have done that 100% of the time.
How much weight did you lose? Like when you completed it, were you significantly lighter?
Yeah. So I started at 146 and I finished at 134 or so.
So that's not too bad though.
It wasn't too bad.
Yeah.
And it quickly came back. So like, but I sacrificed like all my little muscles that I had built up from CrossFit were just evaporated. like I was like, oh no, my little biceps gone.
I ran across the country, but I got to turn in my CrossFit man card.
Yeah, pretty much.
But I like that notion of just becoming strong, stable, and fresh. You have this huge base, and the discipline, as you mentioned earlier, was really about holding back, because you're so used to running fast and far. It would be very easy for you, at least early on, to kind of overdo it and dig a hole for yourself. So just being like really cautious and like meeting out the days, like, in a very methodical way, and kind of building the fitness as you go. Like I talked about James Lawrence, the Iron Cowboy, who did like 101 Ironmans.
Yeah.
And he was like, he barely did any running at all before that. He was like, I'll get fit for that as I go, because it's so long. There's only so much I can do to get ready for it.
Yep.
And we can debate the wisdom of that, but I can see the logic.
Yeah. And that being said, like we didn't touch on this, but in 2019, I did a test where I ran across Israel and set the fastest known time on the Israeli National Trail.
And I was like 600 miles or something, right?
Yeah, it's 1,000 kilometers or so. And I did it in about 10 days. So like 100 kilometers a day. And I knew like what that meant. Like, and that to me was like if you want to go for the real record, like to run across the country, that's like 72 miles a day. And those are big days. Like, and going across Israel, like I had days that were like 20-hour days, and you're going up and down mountains and navigating. And I was just like, I know what that means. So like when I hear people say like, oh, I'm going to do it in like 40 days. I'm like, you dude, don't even, you don't know what you're saying, because like, it's not like the running's one part of it, but then there's like where you're going to stop the RV, where you're going to get food, like who's going to do the laundry, like who's going to, like, how long does it take you to tape your feet? Like, do you know how long it takes to tape your feet in the morning? Like, are you going to make yourself take a shower? And then every night I was doing a Facebook or Instagram post. So like, that was like an hour and a half every day trying to remember what happened during the day, you know, who threw a hamburger at you, like the person that stopped their car to, you know, wish you well, or, you know, tried to run you off the road, or whatever happened.
Yeah, you were pretty good about that. You know, always taking photos with people that were running with you, like everywhere you went. It's cool. And even though you did this in 62 days, you still managed to go see Top Gun and go to Dairy King and like read a book here and there.
I read like 32 books.
Wow.
Yeah.
Like before you went to bed every night?
No, I was listening to
audiobooks. Okay.
Yeah.
Right,
so I was listening to audiobooks. I was listening
multitasking.
I was listening to your podcast a lot. Like thank you again, because you guys helped me get through it for sure. Like it was.
That's cool.
And especially I love the long form, because like you really get into it with people. And so it's, you know, I remember one day in the middle of Nevada listening to you guys talk, and I was just like, man, this is so awesome. Like, I can't believe, like, because I was thinking of like, I also read a bunch of the old books, like, you know, Tales from the Breakdown Lane and like my life walking around the country and stuff. And I was just thinking, like, those guys are like going to payphones, like to check in with their family. Like, I'm like on my AirPods, like calling my wife, like she's listening to cars like zip by me, like freaking out, you know, every day. And then eventually by like 2 weeks in, she's like, there's another truck. I was like, yeah, another truck. But like, I had those kind of resources that people before me didn't have.
Yeah, and the GPS, everyone knows where you are all the time.
Oh,
and you've
for
got
sure.
An RV.
Yeah.
So did you have like, what was the crew situation? Did you have multiple people coming in and out, or like one guy who was with you the whole time?
Yeah, so I hired a guy. So Eric Bells is his name. And that was the other thing, was like, how do you get crew? So like I had to figure it out. So my friend Carl Meltzer, I don't know if you know him, like Speed Goat.
I've never met him, but I know who he is, of course. Yeah.
So like he set the record on the Appalachian Trail, and he's run like the Pony Express Trail. And so I talked to him, and it was lucky, man. It was my buddy from Michigan State said like, hey, my friend cruise people. And I was like, whatever, you know, like this guy cruise people at like Mother of the Woods, like 10K or something. And he's like, no, he cruised like real people. And I was like, okay, sure. Give me his name. And so I call Eric and I'm like, hey man, I heard you crew people. He's like, yeah, I crew people. I was like, oh, cool. Like, who have you crewed? Like, what are we doing here? And he's like, yeah, I crewed like Carl Meltzer. I was like, really? And so I text Carl. I'm like, Carl, do you know some guy named Eric?
Lying?
Yeah. And he's like, dude, Bells? Yeah, hire him. I was like, okay, cool. I was like, oh, okay. And so
you got the guy.
So I got the guy. And then my dad, it was just going to be my dad and I. And then my brother and I were like, dude, that's not going to work. And my sister, and she's like, you know, you can't just be with dad by yourself for like 2 months. And I was like, okay, we should get somebody else. And so I was so glad I did, because I mean, my dad's awesome, but like, that's a lot of work for anyone.
Sure. Like
just one person, like that's just impossible. Yeah. So like I had my dad, Eric, and my dad's friend. And he and my dad would kind of like be there and not be there, but Eric was always there. So he was kind of my crew chief.
And you had some scraps with people throwing hamburgers at you and trucks trying to drive you off the road. Like what was the, you know, what were some of the dramatic?
That was definitely traumatic. Like I think every day there was like drama as far as like
every day.
Yeah, every day. With people, you know, just I think a lot of it times it's just people being surprised that you're out there, and it makes them uncomfortable, and then they kind of get mad that they feel uncomfortable, and then they're like, all right, well, I'm gonna, you know, buzz you a little bit closer than I have to. Or have you ever been coal rolled?
What does that mean?
Oh my God, it's this thing. I didn't even know it existed until I got to Indiana. But basically, like a diesel truck, they can get up next to you and they downshift, and it blows like this.
Oh, all the exhaust comes out?
Yeah, the black smoke comes out. And if they do it right, they can actually spray like diesel out the back of the like exhaust at you. I did not know that was a thing, but it is a thing.
So doing that on purpose?
Yeah, so like doing that on purpose.
That's so cool.
Oh, it was crazy. I had one little old lady. It was like I'd start every day at like 6 in the morning and go to like try to end about 6 at night. So like 12 hours of running or walking or whatever. And it was like 6:30 in the morning. This little old lady like comes around the corner, sees me, and just flicks me the bird. Like, I'm like, it's like 6:30 in the morning, man. Like, how, like, what, how could your day be so bad already that, you're just in a bad mood about something? So, but I've said this to a few people, like, and I think you mentioned this, but like for every, 2 or 3 people that were terrible or not happy that you're out there, there was 20 or 30 people that were so stoked that you were there. And, we had people come out like that had been looking forward to this, like since I started, and this one guy had passed away on the operating table, got revived, came back and decided he wanted to run with us. So like he showed up, and I guess he had like told us at the beginning, like, hey, I just want to run a mile with you. And I was like, dude, you're going to run as many miles as you want. So like, why don't you set the pace? So like that whole morning, like he set the pace and I just stayed behind him, and he ran 10K with us. Like, he had not been able to, like, he wasn't even alive like 3 months before that. Like he passed away and came back. And we had another guy with AFib that came out to West Virginia and looked for the steepest climbs on my route because he's like, I can't run with you that long, but he just wanted to hike with us up one of the climbs, like stuff like that.
That's cool.
Dude, it was everything I hoped it would be.
That's so cool. Yeah. I mean, I just know from watching Ricky's documentary, like the most, heartwarming, sequences are when he has these incredible encounters with random people, like the guy who wanted to give him money.
Yes. Oh my God. We had that so many times.
Really?
Yeah. It was amazing. We actually had a woman who sent her mom and dad, she knew they were driving out on Route 50. She sent them to find us and to donate money, but like they weren't sure they wanted to donate the money. So they were like quizzing us about where it was going to go and stuff. And I was like, man, if you don't want to, it's fine.
Where exactly is this $40 going to end up? At Dairy King?
Yeah, exactly. I was like, it's fine. You don't have to.
Vegan ice cream.
Yeah, exactly.
World Vision can wait.
No, actually, there was a better story. So have you ever ridden the Katy Trail? It's in Missouri. It's basically like the C&O Canal, but it's in Missouri. And what's so cool is like, and you probably see this when you go places, like, I think one of the things I love the most about our country is like, people are so proud about where they live and they take so much pride and they have so much reverence for it. Like, if you go anywhere near Missouri, they'll tell you about how cool the Katy Trail is. And like, they think it's like the most unique thing in the world. And it is pretty unique, but it's just the C&O Canal. It's like basically what we have in DC. It goes from Georgetown to Hagerstown, right? And so like, it's awesome, but it's like, it's similar to what there is around the world. But like, they had like the head of the Park Service come out and meet me. They had like the mayor of Jefferson City, which is the capital of Missouri, come out. But like, one of my favorite experiences is like, I had these little old lady and man come out, and the guy's like, hey, we want to support you. Our son's like a big fan. We came out, they like, waddle up and they're like Hokas, and they're like, we wore our Hokas. I was like, no way, that's awesome. And he reaches in his wallet to give me a $50 bill, and she reaches over and slaps his hand. She's like, no. And so he, gives me like a $10 bill. And what I loved about that interaction was like, it didn't matter that, they didn't give us, $50 or whatever. Mm-hmm. What was, you could just see like, that's been their relationship. And like, he's the like big spender, like he's coming from the heart.
Yeah. He's like the head.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
So fast.
Yeah. But like, they make such a little perfect couple, and like those interactions, like, is something like so unique and something that you wouldn't get a glimpse of someone's life if I hadn't, been doing it in that way.
Yeah. And you ran into some transcon runners along the way, right? Like other people that were doing it or coming from the other direction?
Yeah. I had 2 friends doing it. So Richard Donovan, who does the 7 marathon, 7 day, 7 continents, he was doing it. And so we actually met in Missouri, like right off the Katy Trail. He was going east to west and I was going west to east. And then I had another friend that was going kind of like a northern route, but I had a guy that I ran into again, I think it was in maybe Kansas, and it was in the middle of nowhere, dude. It was like 11 o'clock in the morning, like between two towns, but like far, like 20 miles. And it was just kind of hot, like 95 degrees. And I see this guy, shirt off, stroller, like, I'm like, there's no way that guy's just out for a run, like around his block, you know, like
out in the middle of the nowhere with a stroller.
Yeah. I'm just like, that's got to be another transcon runner. And I was like, Jennifer, I'll call you back. And I like run across the street and I'm like, dude, are you running across the country? He's like, yeah. Are you running across the country? I'm like, yeah. And it was like, dude, I needed to see somebody else doing this. And I was like, where'd you come from? He's like, Norfolk. And I was like, oh, no way. Norfolk, Virginia? He's like, yeah. I was like, how long ago did you leave? And he's like, I don't know, 15 days. And I was like, what? Like, I was so excited because I was like, going across the Western states, like you could be in Nevada for like 7 or 8 days.
Right.
And so I was watching my friends go from East Coast to West Coast and they'd be like, oh, I'm in Massachusetts. Now I'm in Pennsylvania. Now I'm in Illinois. And I'm like, I'm still in Nevada. Like, and, and then going across Kansas, like everyone was like, you're going to hate your life. And I actually loved it. I thought it was amazing, but it's a humongous state. Like I was running across Kansas for 9 days. Like just insane.
Never ending. Yeah. I can't remember who it was. It was either Robbie or Hella talking about like when you go west to east, after you get over the Rockies and then you're going, you know, you have these long flat expanses, et cetera, but you kind of think it's this slow downhill all the way to the East Coast. And then you hit like the mountains around West Virginia and it just destroys you. Right.
Yeah.
So I don't know if Route 50, like where that actually, you know, that tracks with what these guys were talking about, but they said that was like a soul crusher because you kind of, you're getting really close and then it's like this wall that you hit.
That's totally true. Yeah. And I knew that going in just because I'm from around here. And I think so many people like think the Rockies are so imposing and they really are. Like there was big days and big climbs, but the little climbs, I mean, that's what makes Barkley so hard. Like I've done that race a couple times.
I mean, that's the one thing that, you haven't cracked that one.
No, dude, not even close. Like I haven't even made it a single loop yet in time. So, but like, I know like the short little climbs of Appalachia and the East Coast are legit. And I knew that going in and I was like, I think my route had 130 some thousand feet of elevation gain. And I got to like West Virginia and I was like at 90,000. I was like, well, there's 30,000 feet coming up in the next couple of days.
30% of your grade remaining.
Yeah.
What was the hardest point? I mean, did you have like some breaking moments or?
Yeah. I mean, I think there were a couple of hard parts. Like I'd never been away from my family that long. So like that was really hard for me. Like I wasn't expecting it to be that hard just from traveling the world and being gone on all these adventures. I wasn't expecting to miss them as much as I did. That was hard. But like, as far as like physically, like each and every day was so hard. Like that last like 10 miles every day was like finishing 100-miler. Like it was really, really hard. I was not expecting that. I figured kind of what we were saying earlier is like, as you go, you're just going to get stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger. What I didn't realize is like, the longer you go, you're getting so strong, but you're also just getting so much more tired. So it's like the strength, it's almost balanced out, or like, and some days it could be an kind of unequal. But I think the worst thing was I had about 500 miles to go and a truck veered over the white line and tried to like scare me, hit me. I'm not sure. And I was in the middle of a stride and I had to stop running because he got that close. Like if I would have kept swinging my leg, I would have crashed into his bumper. And so I had to like kind of veer off the side of the road. And at that moment I felt my hamstring pop and I was like, oh man, this is not good. And I still had 10 miles to go for the day. And everyone's like, oh, you should just get in the car. And I was like, no, man, I'm trying to average like 52 miles a day. So I was like, I'm just going to walk it in. And that was a really low point. Like I couldn't put weight on my right leg. I was like so mad because I'd been so disciplined, like every day, not overdoing it. You know, taking care of my feet, taking my socks off every time I come into the car, like putting on sunscreen, like putting on chapstick, like doing all the little annoying things to make sure that I get there. And to have somebody kind of ruin that or potentially ruin that, for like no reason that I could see other than me just being on the road. Like I was really just kind of mad at the world and life and yeah, I didn't know if I was going to be able to run.
So how did you bounce back from that? Just get in the car, get massage, or how did that get worked out so you could bounce back and get back on it?
Well, so instead of like it taking like 2 hours to go 10 miles, it took like 3.5 hours to finish it off for that day. I got in the car, I called my personal trainer, my guy, Jesse, and I was like, Jesse, what do you think? He's like, is it black and blue? I'm like, I don't know. I can't put weight on it. I can't even like get out of, like, I don't know if you've ever been that hurt where you can't like take your shorts off. You're like, this really, really hurts. I basically like cried myself to bed basically. And like, was like, I don't know what to do. Like, I don't want to, he's like, don't stretch it anymore. Don't really do anything. If it swells up, like, he's like, try to put some ice on it, which I did, but he's like, I don't know if that's going to really help. And a lot of times, I don't know if you do this, but if I turn my ankle or stuff, I actually just leave it and don't put ice on it because I want the blood flow to pump through there. Or you do like a little bit of ice and then let the blood come kind of rushing back. So you get like that burst of blood flow to it. And I woke up the next day and it was still kind of hurting as I was like taping my feet and putting my shoes on. And I was just like, I'm just going to walk for the first hour and see how it goes. And then I came to like a kind of a slight downhill and I was like, well, we're going to see how this goes. And I just started running, like shuffling, really not really running. And I was like, I don't feel it hurting. And then I continued to run the rest of the day. And then if I'd run, I don't know if you've ever done like a hamstring, but when I've done it, like if you push too hard, like it starts to twinge. As soon as it did that, I would just start walking. And I just did that for the whole day.
And it just sort of sorted itself out.
Yeah.
You're lucky.
Dude, so lucky.
Yeah.
Like I was just thinking like 500 miles of walking, this is going to take, instead of taking 500 miles would be about 10 days, this is going to take 20 days, right? Or more. Like I'm
right.
Like that's just going to mean like I'm not going to finish anywhere close to where I want to finish. But I mean, I felt like I could still walk on it, but like I was like, oh, this is just going to be terrible.
What I extract from that is that the little things are the big things. It's all about like, the fact that you race so much that, for the most part, you've been able to like sidestep injuries and, have all these incredible achievements. It's really a function of consistency, like waking up early, showing up every single day, paying attention to those small things, the details, whether it's taping your toes or making sure you got lube in your, in your armpit or whatever, your inner thigh or whatever it is, like those tiny things, this effort to, control all the variables that are within your control. And yet at the same time, in the story you just told, like you can't anticipate everything. There's always going to be something that can derail you. But when you're paying attention to as many of the things that are within your control as possible, that's really kind of the path towards achieving the big goals are about like doing the tiny little things every day. Yeah,
the annoying little things, like the things you don't want to do, right? Like no one wants to wake up an hour early to tape their toes. Like at least I don't. Like that's not what like makes me excited. Or like making sure that you've gone to the bathroom 3 times before you show up to the start line. And it's not like I started out doing it this way. Like I think one of my favorite talks that as far as like the audience was like, I was at the San Francisco Marathon and they're like, you've done this talk a million times, I'm sure, where it's like, tell me your race day tips. And it's like, wake up 2 hours before the race and, eat. And then, what do you eat? Bagel or whatever it is. Right. And I was like, I'm going to do a different talk today. I'm going to tell you all the things I've done wrong. Like, so the reason I can tell you what to do is because I've done everything wrong. Like I've shown up with races with no shoes before and like had to borrow my buddy's shoes because I was like, oh, I'm for sure put them in my bag. And so now if people follow me on Instagram, they see like lay out my kit the night before because I've showed up without safety pins. I've showed up without the right chip, in South Africa where you have to buy the chip ahead of time. I've rucked up to the race without lube in the Gobi Desert, and I was like knocked out of the race because I had gastrointestinal problems. And had it not been for some guy on a moped driving by with like diaper cream, I would have been, still in the Gobi Desert somewhere. So like I learned all the things to do because I've done all the things wrong in the past. And so like if you keep making mistakes and you don't learn from them, that's a problem. But if you realize like, oh, maybe I should lay my kid out the night before so that I, don't show up without
right. It's no big mystery. It's like basic common sense kind of things, and
right?
Like planning ahead,
right?
But like going beneath the surface on all of that, like I'm interested. That stuff's all fine, but like, what is it that's like driving you? Like, what's behind all of this that is compelling you to tackle these challenges? Like, what are you trying to learn about yourself, or what is it that you're kind of exploring internally? Like, what is the teaching that you're extracting from all of these adventures?
I think at the base level, I want to see if I can do it. I want to see if it's possible for me. And if it's not possible now, is it something that I want to invest in that it will be possible in the future? So,
but why is it important to you to try to see if you can do these things?
I don't know. I think I'm always questing to be better. Like, I think I want to get the best out of myself. And I feel like right now it's through these kind of big, ridiculous challenges. And I think I want to showcase for people that it is possible. Like I didn't come from a big, endurance background. I didn't know any of these things when I first started. Like I started like so many other people with like a little goal. And then from there, I was like, maybe I can do something else. And, eventually I'll reach something that I can't do. And then you have to decide if you want to keep going and try to do it. Like right now,
Barclays?
like Barkley, right? Like I know that like it's possible. People have done it, but like, is it possible for me?
Why is that so, intractable? Like, what is it about that race that just cracks everyone?
I think for me, I don't have a lot of the best skills for it. Like, I think like you have to be really there's a couple of ways I think you can do it, or like it looks to me that you can do it. Like you can just keep going to the race so that you just put the time in. Like I said, it's kind of like pledging, right? Like you just keep showing up and like eventually you get hazed enough where you are like, okay, I know where the book is, or I know what he means when he says like the coal road, or like go past the sofa on the lily of the valley. Like I know what all the like flowers are that he's talking about. And so I've learned the lexicon. I've put my time in. I know all the candy trails, like, the regular trails, and I know what Bird Mountain looks like. And then you just have to get lucky with weather. Like I think the biggest thing for Barkley is like getting decent weather, because if you get the fog that comes in a couple times when I've been there, like I'm not seeing you. Like, and so the only way to get through it is to know the course really well, be really incredible at navigation, and get lucky with weather. And then you have to have the fitness.
So is that something you're going to go back to?
I'd like to, yeah. I mean, I think, but if you don't want to do the work, I don't think you should take a spot from somebody that's willing to do the work. So like, if you're just going there just to like say that it's like, oh, I did Barkley, like I don't want to take someone's spot unless I'm ready to like fully commit.
Yeah. So what are the big goals that are looming out there that you're thinking about right now?
Yeah, I think this is actually one of the hardest things, right? Like coming off of like a run across the country, like everyone's like, oh, what's next? And so my pat answer and it's something that I wanted to do actually before the run across the country, is the Appalachian Trail. That's like really near and dear to my heart. And like, that's something that's gripping in that feels impossible. But like when I was running across the country and I ran past the distance, like, I don't know if the other people that you talked to, I don't remember if they had said this or not, but like when I had little checkpoints, like I went 1,000 miles or I went 2,000 miles, like, or crossed into a state, like you get a kind of a boost.
Rush, yeah.
I got a huge rush when I was like, I just ran the entire Appalachian Trail distance, like not the vertical, right? Because the
right.
vertical was like way more than what I was doing. But like just to know that you can do that distance, that was impactful for me. And that was something where I always like said to my wife, like, hey, if I ever get fired from my job, I'm going to do the Appalachian Trail. And now I'm like the owner of the company. So
you keep
now
doing these crazy things. You're never there. You're giving them, but you're a partner, right? Can they even fire you?
Yeah. Well, I'm actually one of the owners now. Yeah. So like I have to fire myself.
You might go out of business before they can fire you, but like,
right. So like the Appalachian Trail, and then
you're the reason why we have, what's it called? All these issues with supply chain, right? It turns out it has nothing to do with the pandemic. It's all because you're just not at your desk.
Yeah, right. No.
All these cargo ships are like
backed up, and they're like, "Where's Mike? Where's Mike?
We can't come into Long Beach because we can't get Mike on the phone."
Yeah, no. No, that was actually great. Like that was actually one of my biggest fears, was telling our big client, like, it's a company called Maersk Line Limited, who's like, I don't know,
like the biggest, right?
Yeah, they are the biggest. Yeah. And so like, I was like, oh man, I really want to do this. And they're like, that's amazing. We want to help you. And I was just freaking out about that conversation. And so I was really happy that they came on board. But yeah, like as far as goals, like the Appalachian Trail, and then I have this ridiculous interest in, and this is really far out there for me, but like doing, like you've done some of big swims, but like a swim around Manhattan, I think would be kind of cool. Like people do that one.
I love that one. That's definitely on my list.
Yeah. Like I think, and I'm not a good swimmer. Like you're a good swimmer. Like for me, my longest swim.
That's the beginner's mind thing. Like you would want to do a long swim and you're not a swimmer.
Yeah. I'm very bad at swimming. As far as like form, and like, I think the longest swim I've done is 3 miles, and it took me longer than running like a marathon. Like it was like 2 hours and 25 minutes to go 3 miles, like in the ocean, but like still. And I really wanted to do the 9-mile swim, but I freaked out. Like I was like, oh, you have to get a crew, and like, you need like a boat next to you or whatever. And then I want to row across the Atlantic. Like that's something.
Oh, wow.
Like, and so I've been talking to a friend in Arlington that I won't name because he like hasn't told his wife, because I like called him about it and I was like, dude, do you still want to do that? And he's like, yeah, let me go outside though. I got to walk the dog because I don't want to tell my wife yet.
Well, I got a few guys that you can talk to about that who have some experience with that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about that world.
Yeah, but I think that would be really cool, especially like that's like for real adventure. Like, and I feel like that's like what I'm looking for, like those adventures, like, and there's a lot of other things. Like I want to like climb Everest, but like my wife and I have a deal where I can't do that until the kids are 18. So
that's a good rule.
Yeah.
I think I saw a quote where you said, you were asked this question and you said, I have so many things I want to tackle next. I want to row across the Atlantic, and I want to run the Appalachian Trail. I want to do the Pacific Crest Trail, run across all the continents, and then also run on the moon.
Yes.
You actually said that.
Yes. Yes.
So you're dreaming big, my friend.
Dude. Well, I think if you just keep putting out, so I've been saying that for a long time about running on the moon, or like I would take Mars, but Mars is a little bit further away. But yeah, I think that could be really cool. And I mean, it's not possible yet, but I don't know if it's going to be that far off.
Time will tell.
Yeah.
Well, that's Jeff Bezos. Or
Elon. Or Elon, yeah.
Where does becoming a professional pickleball player fit into all of this? Because that seems to be the thing you're most fired up about right now.
Oh my God, I'm so lit up on that. Yeah, I just was able to partner with a company called Yola. So they're sponsoring the best players in the world. And so a guy named Ben Johns.
You are a professional. Then you're a professional.
Well,
you're sponsored pickleball player.
But it's very early stages for sure. And I'm definitely like, I don't know if you know like how the rankings go in pickleball.
I know nothing.
So it's like tennis. It's like 2.5, 3, 3.5, 4, 4.5. 5 is like you're really good, almost pro, and then kind of above 5 you're pro. So I'm like 3, 5, 4. So like, very early stages. But yeah, I'm spending a lot of time playing pickleball and drilling and like I'm with a group called the Arlington Iron Paddles, and there's like 70 people in the group and everyone wants to be a pro. So like we're working really hard. So like I'm learning shots and, meeting people to drill at like 7:00 in the morning, paying like $20 on the weekend to go get my butt kicked in these little tournaments that we're hosting. And
it's weird how that's become such a thing in such a short period of time. Like it went from nothing to, I have so many friends who are obsessed with playing it. Like, how does that like, it's weird how culture happens that way. Like,
yes,
it's just this thing percolates up and then suddenly we all agree that like, this is a cool thing and we all should be doing it.
Yes, it's so weird. And especially when I first heard of it, I was like, oh, that's that sport the old people play, right?
Right,
and
like paddleboard tennis or whatever.
Yes, exactly. Or like ping pong or something, or bocce. Like I play on a bocce league also. Like,
of course you do. What?
Yeah.
I don't understand the time schedule. How you fit all these things in.
It's I don't know. Somehow it works. But as far as like pickleball, like it's easy to learn but hard to master. It's kind of like I don't know if you saw it, but I also like play chess and I'm like trying to get better in chess. And so like I find these little hobbies and kind of go deep as I can on them. And with pickleball, like I feel like it's almost, I guess Josh and I were talking about this too, is like it's like the first time you hear something, you kind of like it's in your consciousness, but you don't really notice it. And it's like takes 7 times until you kind of realize that you have seen it before. Or like, it's almost like you buy a car and then all of a sudden you see that car everywhere, And I feel like that's with pickleball. It's like, somebody was playing it and then all of a sudden LeBron James buys a team, or like Drew Brees has a team, or Tom Brady's buying a team. And you're like, oh, this is, a thing. But it's been around for a while. And
right. But it's having its moment right now.
Yeah, totally.
It's so hilarious that you're pursuing this. Like most runners, especially elite runners, would not only like not be interested in that, would like avoid it like the plague, because it just feels like a recipe for injury. Like, you know what I mean? Like there's so many, all the lateral movements and the quick bursts and all of that. Like it would be so easy for you to, pull a hamstring or a calf muscle or something like that. But you're like, no, do this.
Well, and I think that it's actually good because we do spend so much time going straight, like unless you're trail running and then you're getting a little bit more of that. But like, I think it's great. Like I've noticed that it's made me more limber, and it's good. I think a lot of people that are in endurance sports maybe don't come from like a racket sport background or like a ball and sport background. And so like that for me is fun too, because like growing up playing lacrosse, like I do have those like kind of skills. Like
right.
What's annoying though is when you see someone come from tennis and they're like, oh, I've been playing for like 2 weeks, and they can make all the shots and like they're making you look stupid because they like just know how to hit topspin. Like I am struggling. Like I really want to like be able to hit topspin, and like I see someone with tennis background and they're like, oh, of course you can hit topspin. Like,
yeah, I mean, you're very humble in saying like, I didn't come from an endurance background and I don't have any great gifts. But usually people who are in endurance sports, part of the reason they're in it is because they have no eye-hand coordination, which is, I would count myself as one of those people. Like, but you're a ball sports guy first, right? Developed this huge endurance engine, but also happens to be really fast and can like hit a ball and play chess. Like your neurochemistry, like your neural network is extremely diverse. And I'm interested in like how all those things feed each other. Like, is that a conscious thing? Like, oh, I'm going to do all these things because they make me better at the thing that I'm most passionate about? Or is this just like a reflection of your general curiosity to be kind of a Renaissance person?
I mean, I think there is curiosity, but I think they all help each other. Like if you want to be a good chess player, like you have to be logical. Like there's no, like chess is a game, but it's really not. It's like everything's known. Like there's no, like, I think, you didn't have Annie Duke on, right? Like the professional.
I know who she is though. Yeah.
Yeah. Like she's amazing, but like a game like Texas Hold'em or something, like there's chance involved. Like chess, like all the moves are known. Like there's no surprises. It's like if you make a bad move, like the computer will tell you made a bad move. And so like, but the same is like and I think you know this, like if you push too hard in a race, you might know that's a bad move, but it might be the right move because there might only be 800 meters left, right? But if you push too hard at the beginning of the race, like there's going to be consequences. And I think like, and so many of the things that we do, like, and the things that I'm trying to do is like, hopefully they're impacting what else I'm doing in a positive way, right? So like the chess is helping me with like decision making, and my endurance is helping me with my chess, and then the pickleball is helping me with like lateral movement and also just having fun. Like it's just really fun. And it's like also like I get to learn like a whole new lexicon. Like I get to learn like there's so much drama in it too. Like the pickleballers don't like the tennis people. Like I didn't know this was a thing. Like the tennis people don't like the pickleballers, and like
that's
trying to find courts and like, yeah, but it's like someone and I, we were talking, it's like when the skiers first had like snowboarders coming to the mountains and they're like, but this is where we play, you know? And it's like, why can't we all play? Like, it's not going to be worse for you, I don't think. Like, why can't we get along? And then it's like, you know, don't hit it hard at this person because if you do, they're going to be mad. And like, so it's been fun to kind of navigate that landscape also. So I think I like to keep things interesting and fresh. And I think, you know, pickleball is allowing me to do that. And I'm seeing just how much like interest there is in it, but also like there's so much skill involved. Like it seems like it's, you just kind of knock the ball around, but then you watch the people at the top level. Like I was just at a pro tournament this past weekend with the Yola team, and like just watching them at that level, it's like, wow, those guys are incredible athletes.
Wow. Well, the joy piece, like the fun piece, seems to be really important, like a driving force, and also like the friendships in the community, right? Like the ultra runner landscape is littered with lone wolves, you know, people who, you know, like they're going into the pain cave and having their own private, you know, kind of experience with what it means to push their own limits. And certainly that's part of it. Of course, when you're running across the country, you're alone a lot, but what animates you really seems to me to be like the people and the, you know, the adventure that happens when you're doing it in community.
Oh, for sure. I think that like when I set out to do the run across the country, like I actually postponed it because of injury, but also because when I did start to feel better, like I didn't want to do it if people couldn't join me like during COVID. So like I waited until I thought it was appropriate for people to be able to come out and be a part of it. Cause I really did want that Forrest Gump experience where people are like, oh my God, he's coming through my town. Like I'm going to, you know, call in
and the
sick
beard was so out of control. Yeah.
Oh my God, it was out of control last week. My wife's like, you got to cut it before you go see Rich. Cause
I love it.
No, I really enjoy it too. And I was just, yeah, that's exactly what I was hoping for. Like it would move people to, like I had people like flying out from like Richmond to Indiana to run with me, or, you know, somebody from Indiana ran with me and had so much fun. They came to finish the last day with me. And so like to just have people like have so much fun that they're like telling their friends to come the next day or they show up again. Like, I mean, that was just epically cool. And like, and I had so many people, we had like special buffs made for it. And like, if someone did an ultra with us, we would give them a buff, like, but we wouldn't tell anyone. So like, you know, like I had so many first time ultra people, you know, that ran their first ultra along the journey with me. And that was just like, man, I can't believe that you allowed me to share that experience with you and you were part of my experience. But like, I just, you know, just to see somebody do something that they didn't think that they could do. It's so cool.
And then the kind of downstream effect of that on their life. Because once they've done something like that, it totally expands your perspective on what you're capable of, and like not just as an athlete, in all areas of your life.
Well, yeah, and it's not just them, but then their family knows that it's possible too. Like my family, when I first started, they didn't know that people could run 50 miles, and now like they know people run 50 miles. They know people run across continents. Like they know people run in all different places. Like that's what it was so cool. Like I think one of my best experiences, like just 2 weeks ago, my son and I ran a half marathon. And like,
was that his first half marathon?
It was his first half marathon.
He looks like he's like, I don't know, 15, something like
16.
that. 16.
Good call. Yeah. And so I was like, oh, I'm going to be running the Baltimore Marathon. He's like, oh, I'll run the half. And I was like, wait, what? And like, I just was like, wow, this is like when he was just a little baby. I was like, someday maybe we'll run together, you know, and like just to have that moment. But then to get to share it with like his cross country friend, Lucas ran and my brother ran. And then we had all the people in Baltimore because I've run that race and I don't know, 7 or 8 times. And like just to be out there cheering for us and like us getting to cheer for them and just to be part of the community again. Like I missed that during COVID and I missed that chance to reconnect with people. And that really feeds me too. Like I've said it before, like I'm an emotional vampire. Like I just suck that energy in and like use it. And it was great to be out there.
How old is you have 2 boys, right?
Yeah, 2 boys. Pierce is 16 and Grant's 13. And so like 3 weeks ago, we all did a 5K together and Grant ran. Grant's like been playing on the freshman football team and he's an 8th grader. So like he's getting, you know, knocked around by the freshmen. And so he started to go and do some CrossFit with me and he did his first 5K, like his first legit 5K.
Yeah.
So,
and in terms of kind of parenting active kids, like you don't strike me as a Joe DeSena type who's like setting the alarm up and like dousing his kids with cold water at 4 a.m. to get them out of bed. Like
no,
you're more of a, you know, a attraction type. Like I'm just going to set the example and let them make their own choice. Or how do you, you know, kind of get your kids excited about doing the things that you love?
That's exactly it. Yeah. I mean, Joe's a good friend. And so like his style is different than mine for sure. But yeah, I want them to come to it through their own means. And like, I want to be there. Like and I think that was what's so awesome about like having that base of fitness. Like you could do the same thing. Like if your kids were like, hey, we want to run an ultra with you, you'd be like, all right, let's go. Which one do you want to do? Yeah. Like the Bulldog one right out back, you know?
They have not made that request yet though.
But like it's there,
so far,
right?
Disinterested.
Yeah.
Anyway, go ahead.
But I thought it was actually funny when you were saying like you were doing a promotion for like just eggs. And like, I just started eating those and you're like, but my kids actually like eat them. And like, I think that's cool. Like that you expose them to these things. And if they choose to be interested, that's great. But at least they know it's there. Right.
Yeah.
And so like with our kids, like I want them to know that it's possible. Like I want them to know it's out there. And if they expressed interest, then like I want to try to make it happen for them. So like they're super into gaming. And so we got them like gaming computers and we've taken them to like professional gaming, like they're really into this game. And we went to Montreal to watch like the World Championships so that they know what it's like at the highest level. Right. So like, man, if you want to do that, that would be amazing. Like it doesn't have to be, you know, what we're into, but we want to kind of facilitate whatever they're gravitating to.
Yeah. Your job as the parent is to kind of is to notice when a spark of inspiration hits and to kind of fill that gap and support that. That's sort of the way that I look at it.
Yeah.
And it generally doesn't come in the form that you would like it to come or expect, you know, because it's rigged that way. And there's something cool about that. Like you being a beginner's mind, like, oh, now here's your opportunity to become a gamer. Yeah. Mike, this is your other professional career that awaits you. Well, and you can do it with your kids.
Well, and so I have done a lot of gaming. And so like, I was like the kid that like broke the Atari when it first came out. Like I flipped like Pac-Man and like, I used to live in a group house and like, after I'd finished my runs, I would get on like one of those little trampolines and like play Madden for like 4 or 5 hours, just jumping on the trampoline, you know, like playing my brother and our roommate. So like, I'm a huge proponent of gaming. Like I think it's so many people are like, oh, screen time limited or whatever. And I think like most of us are on our screens all the time anyhow. And it's just getting them ready for what they're, you know, going to face in the real world. And they have to make their own decisions, you know?
Yeah. I remember as a kid, we would go to Rehoboth Beach in the summer. And I would go to the arcade on the boardwalk and just spend hours playing Space Invader.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I'm older than you, but the old school games.
Yeah, totally.
Back in the day. And that's where my relationship with gaming begins and ends.
Oh, really? You're not gaming anymore?
No. No.
Not even on the Tesla, like when it's charging?
I know that those games are on there. I haven't done that yet.
Oh my
Maybe I
God,
should
I've played
explore
on
that.
Josh's on the
Oh,
way
you
up.
did?
Yeah.
That's so funny. Yeah, cool. All right. The last thing I want to talk to you about before I let you go is just the kind of process that you use to choose which goal to pursue, and then the kind of step by step and how you kind of assemble the plan towards achieving that. Because I kind of want to leave people who are watching or listening who are thinking about a big goal, or maybe have never set an audacious goal for themselves, like how you kind of embark upon that process for yourself, and maybe some tools or principles that could, guide the listener.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of times, like, my biggest thing is I always try to say yes to as many things as possible. So like, if I get an invite to a race in South Africa, I'll be like, yes. When I decided to do the run across the country,
But you have to, sorry to interject,
Yeah,
but like, as somebody who's probably getting invited to a lot of races,
yeah,
you have to learn how to say no, right? Like, how do you choose which things to say yes to and which things to say no to?
right, exactly. And so like, that's what, I was just about to say. It was like, when I decided like, okay, this is my only focus, like, to do the run across the country. Cause usually I'm pretty open. Like, there's some races that I want to do, or, I have some goals. Like, it might be to run faster, or like to run further, or to like, try to win my first 100-miler, or whatever it is. Or like, hopefully get into hard rock or something. Right. Like, but when the run across the country, it was like, I want to do this. Then I had to pick like, okay, when do I want to do this? Then I have to how do I get everyone on board that I need to be a part of this? So it was almost like I drew up a business plan, right? Like, so I was like, okay, I'm basically going to form this corporation. I'm going to be the CEO. It's a bad corporation because we're just going to be losing money. Like, this is not a making
Right.
money
But
thing.
hopefully losing somebody else's money.
No. This was
You got to get the sponsors.
No,
these are expensive endeavors.
Yeah, no, this was a very expensive endeavor. This was a once in a lifetime type thing. And I knew it was going to be expensive, and I was like, okay, but I want to make sure like our family's on board first, right? I think in all these things, like, if you don't have your team, like your partner or your family on board, like, it's just not going to work. So like, that was the first thing, was like, how do I get my family to be a part of this and want to allow this to happen? So once I was sure that that was okay, then I decided like, okay, now how do I get work? And that was what I was really worried about this. Like, how do I get work to, allow me to do this? So then once I was like 100% sure, then I brought it to my partner. I was like, I really want to do this. And then I had an idea of like, okay, how, instead of like, oh, I just want to do this, I had you have to go through like, what are the pain points, right? Like, what are the things that are going to stop me from being able to achieve this? And for running across the country is like, how am I going to finance it? Like, when am I going to do it? Who's going to be on my team? How am I going to get work to agree to it? So you just make a checklist of like everything that needs to get done, and then you just start going down that checklist. And you have to order it in a way that like, if one thing doesn't work, then you have to figure out how to make it work before you can go to the next step. And so that's what I did basically. I was like, okay, I got the family on board, figured out how we're going to make it work financially and like with the time off, then talked to my partner about it, talked to my clients about it, hired my friend Mark Cody, who came in to help me during that time. And I'd wanted the opportunity to work with him again anyhow. So it worked out perfect. Trained him for 1.5 years so that he was ready for the challenge.
1.5 years. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I didn't want him to come in and be like, oh, I don't know what to do. And then I was still there if he needed me, and I was still working along the trip. So like, if there was something he wasn't sure about, he'd just call me, or he's like, I need help.
You're pretty available.
Well,
you're just running.
Yeah. Well, and like, that's why I didn't want to set like, I'm not going to go for a world record or anything like that. Like, cause if we have a deadline and there's something that needs to be done, like, I would just schedule a day in a hotel the night before and just work with the clients to be like, hey, I really need the stuff now so that we can get this done so that I can, go for a run.
Right.
And everyone was super cool about it. And, there were some days where it didn't work out the way we wanted and some stuff had to change. And, I had to stop in the middle of the day and figure it out. But like, that's why I didn't put a deadline on it. And so I just set myself up for success, and like things are going to happen. And, it's not going to go like the way you want. Like I thought I had an RV company that was going to support the run. And then of course, like the week before they were like, yeah, it's not going to be ready. And I was like, oh, okay, well, Cruise America, what's up? And so you just, put yourself in the best possible position and then just keep knocking those things off. And then for the run, it was the same thing. It's like every day, wake up, try to be super consistent. Like the first day, like I wanted to set the tone. Like we were at City Hall and like, people were like taking pictures and everything. And I was like, we have 2 minutes. Like we're leaving at 7:00, like the first day. And like, you just have to set the tone. And then each and every day, you just keep doing those little things. And I think we mentioned this earlier in the podcast, but if you keep doing the little things, the big things happen. But if you start thinking about the big thing and all the things that can go wrong, like you just get stuck.
Or you get paralyzed.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Or you're thinking about the flower when you should be focusing on the root.
Yes.
Focus on the roots. Flower takes care of itself. Focusing on the roots are the little things that you're doing every single day. The watering and the tilling. The tilling of the soil.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, and you just keep stacking the little things, and then like big things happen when you do that.
Yeah. How do you convey that to your kids? Just by your actions, or do you actually like sit them down and say, here's how you accomplish goals?
No.
And how does that go over?
No.
Later, Dad.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Wait, can you take your AirPods out?
Right.
No, I think, and you probably see this too, is like your kids, like no matter what you say, your kids are going to do what they see. Right. And so if you're modeling things that you want them to do or achieve, like they pick up on that much faster than if you say like, hey, we're going to sit here for 20 minutes and talk about what it means to accomplish big things. And then I try to just engage with them as much as possible. And I think that that's one of the biggest things. Like I really miss them when I was gone, and I don't want to miss all these opportunities. Like I had a chance to do a race in Bhutan in October called the Snowman Race. It's one of the places in the world that I haven't been that I really want to go. And they wanted us to be there for 25 days or something. I was like, I'm going to miss like 4 cross-country meets and 5 football games and like all the time in between. And I've already missed too much time this year. And I think you know this, but I don't know if this is true. So like if you do a fact check, like I know your podcast doesn't do that, but like you can, I don't know, I should probably fact check this, but like 90% of the time you're going to spend with your kids is before they're 18. So like if you don't spend that time now, it's not coming back. And so I want to be as present as I can be. And so I've just been around and we'll just, our son will be like, hey, you want to go play murder ball on the trampoline? And I'm like, yeah, let's go do that. And then while we're out there, we're just talking about like, hey, have you done your project in, chemistry or history or whatever? And, you need to, our son's doing they go to this kind of cool school called HB Woodlawn where they have a lot of independent study and direction. And
that's pretty cool.
It's really cool. And it's like a public school and it's just lottery. It's super lucky that our kids got into it. And, he's doing a project on tourism. And so like we went to the library just the other day, and like I got them library cards, and like they had library cards, but of course they expired during COVID. So like, but I was just there to be able to go with them. And that's when I saw all these cool books about travel, like these routes that I haven't seen before. Like now, like I want to run like the Silk Road and stuff because I saw it in this like book, but like just being around to help them, with photography or something, like they're doing these cool projects, and I just want to be there and help as much as I can. And I don't think like sitting down and being like, hey, you should make a checklist, like is going to help them.
That's just, you get the eye roll.
Yeah.
But at some point, the Bhutan trip or the similar type of adventures, perhaps you bring them with you, right?
Oh, and that's what we've done their whole life. So like they've been like, one of our big goals is to get them to all 7 continents, and they've already been to 6 continents as 16 and 13-year-olds.
Wow,
So
I didn't realize, you had traveled with them.
oh yeah. So they've got friends in New Zealand. They've got friends in France, and like they're actually doing a solo trip this spring together to France as a field trip. And my wife's like, oh, we should go. And I'm like, no, they should go by themselves.
That's for them.
Yeah. So
That's
like,
cool.
next year we're going to try to hit Antarctica, and that'll be their 7th continent.
Nice.
Yeah.
Wow. That's exciting.
Yeah. So they're world travelers.
Cool.
And I think that they've learned so much. I don't know if you've had the chance to take your kids around the world with you, but like there's much more that can be learned from, a trip to Japan, where you just get to see so much unique stuff, or a trip to France, or an opportunity to be
100%.
Like, yeah, I mean, my brother and I talking about this, like he's taking his kids to Portugal, and like they're going to miss a couple days of school. And I was like, anytime that we've like gotten one of those, like, hey, your kids need to be in school, we're like, okay, like they're learning a lot in the real world too.
Yeah. I just think, there's so much to be gained from the worldliness of traveling to foreign locations for kids at that impressionable of an age, and like missing school because of like that kind of a broadening experience. Like it doesn't even, equate.
Well, and what I think is awesome is like, they know that there's different ways to do things. Like they know like that you don't always have to, have the easy meal, or they know like sometimes the train doesn't come and we have to figure out another way out to get there, or sometimes your bags don't show up, or that's why you only carry-on. Like
creative problem solving.
Yes,
on the fly.
Exactly.
Right?
Or like, yes, your mom and dad are going to give you a caffeinated beverage at 2:00 in the morning so that you can get off the plane, like, so you probably shouldn't put your iPad in the back of the airplane so that we have to go back to the airport the next day because you lost
Right.
it, like, those things all happen.
All that kind of stuff, man.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, let's just end this with a little sort of inspirational words of wisdom for somebody who's inspired by what you just shared and is ready to go and is thinking about, it doesn't have to be their first running race, but trying to do something hard.
Yeah. I mean, I think the biggest thing for me, and I think for a lot of people, is just finding something that lights you up. I think you mentioned this earlier, but like, if you don't have something that you're a little bit scared of, or you're a little bit intimidated about, like, it's going to be hard to like wake up at 4:45 in the morning when the covers are warm. And, but if there is something that you can find that you're interested in, don't be afraid to go for it. Like, I think signing up is like the first step. And like, it doesn't even have to be a race. It could just be like, hey, I want to, try to go to my local trail and run it. And I thought you actually had somebody on like not that long ago that was said like the 12-hour walk from your front door.
Oh yeah, Colin O'Brady.
Yeah. And it was awesome. Like, I was like, that's exactly what would be a great first step for a lot of people, is just go like somewhere close and just do something unusual, or take the train to the other side of town and like figure your way back to your house. Like, it could be like, I have a friend that started a race called Eco Trail in Paris. And he basically like was like, I'm going all over the world to run. Like, why don't I just have a race? Like, I go train, I take the metro out of Paris and then run back to the Eiffel Tower. Like, when I first started running, like one of my big runs is I'd run down to the Washington Monument and just be like, wow, I can't believe I get to run like to the Washington Monument, or like the Lincoln Memorial. Like, and that's like maybe 7 or 8 miles from my house, but like, 7 miles there, 7 miles back, all of a sudden it's 14 miles. That's a pretty big thing, know? And it could be that, or it could just be like, hey, I want to, go to Starbucks and, run home from there, or walk home from there. And, it starts small, and then, but if it is something like big, like, I think do it, man. Like, there's so many people that I see like wait to do something big, and then something gets in the way, or they don't have the health to do it anymore. And like, it's cliche and dumb, but like seize the opportunity, seize the moment, because you never know what's going to happen. Like I have so many friends that retire and then they're like, oh, I have, dreams to go to Greece, or like, I'm going to spend all this time with my family, and like something happens and it doesn't work out that way.
It never happens. Yeah. I mean, you have to begin, you have to develop an inclination for action, even if those are small steps. I think a lot of people get paralyzed because they're waiting for their life to, come into some sort of alignment where it all feels perfect and makes sense. And it generally doesn't,
No.
Life doesn't work that way. Typically, if it does, good for you. But the other thing I really love about your example and your story is you're somebody who has a passion, who pursues that passion very vigorously, but that passion doesn't come at the expense or the cost of like family, community, career. Like you didn't quit your job, like you have like a, in some respect, like a traditional kind of job career.
Yeah.
And that's very important and creates the stability for you to be able to do these other things. And there's something really kind of like grounded about that I like, because it's not this irresponsible, like, oh, just, let go of everything and like go into the, be like kung fu and like, walk into the wilderness because like I have a passion. It's like we live in the world, you have kids and responsibilities and bills and all of that. And yet you still figured out a way to pursue all of these interests that like light you up, and you've been successful at them. But most importantly, they've given your life like joy and meaning. And I think that's really kind of, it's powerful to be somebody who is as elite as you, but also like so relatable in most of how you spend your time.
Yeah. I hope that is what people take away. Like it's, I think it's hard. Like it's not easy. I mean, I think like, I was jealous at times when I was, you probably know a guy named Anton Kapichka, and like he and I would like battle back and forth, and I'd be like, dude, he's just living in a.
But he lives a totally different, like that guy.
Well, yeah, exactly.
I mean, he might as well be living in a cave compared to like the way that you live your life.
Right. But like, it doesn't matter when you show up to the start line. It doesn't matter. Like you just do the best with what you have. Right. And so like, if you're worried about what someone else is doing, like that doesn't work. Like, but like, there are so many people that go and they do like, I'm going to do 2 marathons a year and I'm going to, build up. And like, that's what my life's going to be. And like, that's great. I'm glad that, there's people that can do that and they have really great performances, but that's just not what lights me up and gets me excited. And that's not my life.
Yeah, I got you.
But I did have that. I mean, I did have that debate with myself. Like, do I want that life? At a various points, like, do I want to walk away from this and be a full-time athlete? And like, what does that look like? And I'm happy that I didn't do that. I'm happy that I tried to see if I could make it all work, because you probably had this too. Is like so many people say like, it's not going to work. And it's not like people trying to be negative. It's just like, for a lot of people, it doesn't work. Mm-hmm. And I'm glad that it has for me.
Yeah. Well, you seem happy. You seem fulfilled in the choices that you've made. And it's good talking to you, man. I appreciate it. And I wish you well. I'm at your service.
Oh, man.
When it comes to running on the moon, let me know.
Oh, dude. Yeah. I need a partner,
Maybe
man.
That might be worth having you back to talk about.
Dude, I would love that. Yeah. Anytime, man. I'd love to hang out and do this again some point.
Yeah, awesome. Well, it's really fun to kind of watch your journey from afar, and it's been an honor and a pleasure to meet you and talk to you. So thanks.
Thanks a lot, man.
Cheers. Peace. Plants.